All right, let's move on to the next one. Interpersonal. Those are noticeably people-oriented and outgoing. They do their best learning corporately in groups or at least with a partner. Which I think this is interesting because as we study these type of people we would normally class as extroverts, but I don't think they're always extroverts. So
I'm an extrovert, I don't.
This is not with you. Yeah. Yes. And I'm an introvert, and I'm the same. I actually do these things, so it was kind of interesting. Students of this type are typically identified as too talkative, not necessarily, or too concerned about being social. Actually, I'm kind of like, I feel like as I was going through this, I was like, I don't know if I completely agree with this one. But anyway, it's old, so we'll see. I think this may have changes. I think there's changes. As I was saying this, I was writing it down. I think there's some changes in this. Anyway, so this is other things they said. They understand people, see things from other points of view, are frequently leaders among peers, or in my case, it's like if there's no one else who's going to lead, then I'll do it. I don't have to lead. Yeah, it's like I don't have to lead, but if nobody else is going to pick up, let's get going. Are good at organizing people and communication, though may sometimes resort to manipulation. Yikes. Observe and kind of know what's going on with everyone. So they kind of read the room, is what we would say. Mediate conflict, maintain peace. Uncanny ability to sense other people's feelings, intentions, and motivations. I almost felt like you're kind of crossing into different parts of the Myers-Briggs in this, and I didn't always see that in this case. Anyway, learn best by relating and cooperating. Have lots of friends, which is more extrovert. Socialize a great deal. Seem street smart. Enjoy group activities. Have ability to communicate verbally and non-verbally. So skills, seeing things from other perspectives, listening, using empathy, counseling, working with groups, peaceful conflict resolution, and building trust. And then vocations, counselors, business people, community organizers, politicians, religious leaders, teachers, and salesperson. How many of you identify with these? Okay, cool. What do you identify with?
Literally all of it.
Wow.
Yeah, I think, that. Like just the idea that it's the too talkative and concerned about being social in a traditional setting.
Yeah.
It's like literally stuff that would be like written for a teacher-parent conference.
Right.
And it's just like they're too talkative. They just want to be with people.
Right. That's interesting. I
There's
love it.
always the idea of like, I would read something 10 times more and study it 10 times more if somebody and me could talk about it right after.
Yes.
And that's why I loved Bible engagement so much. It was like, read this passage, come back, and let's talk about it. And so I would read that passage because I really wanted to hear what other people had to say.
Yeah.
And so I always really liked that.
That's so cool.
So.
Awesome. Anybody else?
Some of it, but not a lot of it. Like the listening skills and the empathy and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Some of this.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see a lot of other things.
Interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I'm same kind of. Some of this, yes, but some of it, some of it I've learned.
One thing that you said that when there's like a lack of leadership or even poor leadership, that I identify with that. Like, okay, I'm just going to take over because we need some direction here.
Right.
I don't think that's related to this, but
Right.
because everything else I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah, the frequently leaders among peers, it's generally like I just have peers that want to hang out but don't know what to do.
Right.
And so it's like, I want to hang out enough, I am willing to find out what to do.
Yeah.
And so generally, like, I'm the person in the group text that sends it out, says, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what,
Right. Yeah.
stuff like that. So that's
Totally.
what like comes to mind when I think that.
Mhm.
I don't have to be, it just generally happens of like, everybody talks about hanging out, but nobody knows what they want to do.
Right. Right.
So,
I think
Yeah.
that then feeds into that frequently leader among peers, just by default you become the leader.
Right.
yeah.
Because of,
Yes. Which is true. I do that too. I just got together with some women, and we were just getting together to say hi and see how you're doing, and and then they'll say, one person will say something, and immediately I go into this like things that God is teaching me, and and then it's like I'm leading them, and I didn't try to do that. So I have done that, and I do often organize stuff. When I was growing up, I'm the oldest of two other sisters, and so 3 of us, and basically I planned everything all the time. And my sisters got really angry with me once, and they were like, "You always get to do what you want to do." And I said, "Oh, well, I don't really care. So what do you want to do?" I don't know. Well, and I'm like, "Well, we could do this, this, or this. What do you want to do?" So I ended up leading anyway. So, whatever. So, all right. We already talked a little bit about how to put interpersonal things in, because you mentioned things that you like. So what do you do, when do you bring this, how do you bring interpersonal into teachings?
group discussions.
Group discussions.
Workshops.
Workshops. That's what this is.
It's basically a Bible study, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a small-
I mean, it's really easy to get them, have a discussion amongst yourselves. One thing that we haven't talked much about is that some people are and it's kind of next to related to the next one we're doing, but they need time to process internally process. So, like I noticed Tim internally processes. Yes. So I stopped asking Tim questions right away because I knew he needed to think about it, and I went to Charlotte. Or I started with me. She's internal, but you've done this. You're familiar with this, where Tim hasn't done it. So that's why I switched out, because I thought, oh, he needs time. So, but other guys, you probably would have been able to, like I could ask you and you would have, you're more verbal processing, so, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just different, and actually understanding that. So sometimes what we'll do in a class that people are verbal processors and internal processors is we'll stop and we'll just say, let's be quiet for like a minute, and we're just going to think about this to give time for the internal processors, and the verbal processors are kind of, but you know, that just gives everybody place to think, process. So, all right, now. Internal processing. Those are especially in touch with their own feelings, values, and ideas. They may tend to be more reserved, but they're actually quite intuitive about what they are learning and how it relates to them. They do prefer to work alone. They have usually strong personalities, yet shy away from groups. They might be more of a loner. Might be. There's a deep awareness of inner feelings, dreams, and ideas. They may keep a diary, and they have ongoing projects that are semi-secretive. They like privacy in their life. Right. They don't want to tell everybody everything. Right? A certain quality of inner wisdom, intuitive ability. They react with strong opinions when controversial topics are being discussed because they actually have thought about it. These people generally are more internal processors. So they seem to love their own private interests, usually possess independence, self-confidence, determination, and high motivation. Not all the time. I'm not going to say that's always, but they march to their own beat in dress, behavior, and general attitude. And they motivate themselves to do well on independent study projects. So skills that they have are recognizing their own strengths and weaknesses, reflecting and analyzing themselves, awareness of inner feelings, dreams, and desires, reasoning with themselves, understanding their role in relationship to others. And vocations would be writers, researchers, theorists, philosophers, small businesses, and religious work. All right, who identifies with this one? I actually have part of this too, so. Yep. Then how can we incorporate it? I already gave you something, but how can we incorporate it in our teachings?
Give them time.
Yes, give them time.
Time to reflect. Like, I don't relate to this, but I always did like when a teacher would be like, okay, we're going to take 15 minutes, like go for a walk, come back in 15 minutes.
Yeah, good.
Like,
That's a good
make
idea.
a process, like go talk to the Lord about what I'm teaching.
Absolutely. Good.
Like, I would always kind of struggle in those 15 minutes. And I'm like, what do I know? Because me, I'm like, I want to bounce it off. And
Right.
So, but I could always tell when those times would happen. It's when you like hear someone be like,
Right.
oh, I haven't heard your voice in like 2 months. And
Right.
So,
Right. I mean, you could always combine it with the where you put people who are internal processors together, and that they can sit together, and put the people who are like verbal processors together. I mean, let's think outside the box. But you kind of need to know your students, and you need to know what they need. So.
There are probably people who like all the information and then they have their assignment. And they
Yes.
need to know
Yes.
study that.
Absolutely. And give them options. Like in some places you can give them the option. Okay, if you want to verbally process this with someone, we're going to have some groups over here, so you can do that. If you want to do this by yourself and you want to do it internally, great, you can go do that there. So give them options. So I think that's a good idea. So.
I find it really interesting. I actually identify with all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that I find interesting is it says, may keep a diary, have ongoing projects that are semi-secretive. For me, I've never, ever wanted to use a diary or use it. I tried one or twice, and I hid it so well that I had to because it's my thoughts.
You can't find it.
I don't want anyone to find this, and so I just stopped. Because I just don't want anyone to
Right.
be able to get in there.
Right. And
what was
that.
that last part that you said? Like the secret.
Have ongoing projects that are semi-secretive.
Right. I would say you like to have some parts of your life not known by other people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and and it's not a problem for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
These
I think
people are so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like, just the idea of like having, I don't know, like projects that you don't want people to know about blows my mind. Like I'm like, no, like if you're spending that much time on something, you should want to share it. You should be proud of it.
Because I see that like someone who's like this maybe not doesn't apply because it is somewhat public, but it's not really. But like the Minecraft server, like you and like a lot of those guys are doing on the Minecraft server, you guys aren't very public with it. But it's like every time I go on there and I see what you're doing, I'm like spending this much time, like and that's like incredible. But I think like you, Nick, Tommy, Dean, like I can see that because it's like when you hear about all the things that you guys do, and it's like I had no clue that was a part of your life. And it's like, oh yeah, because it's like my thing. It's like, oh, that makes sense.
that is so funny. Wow.
Just I can't get over like projects that you do. They don't even like. To me, I'm like I hide things that.
You're shameful.
Yeah. Not things. There's like we're coming out with an EP
Oh.
Why Orlando Music is, and there's like, hey, there's only 4 songs, it's this one person because they're the only one willing. And I just look at the staff that have done SOW, and it's required that they have 5 songs. I would think of Miriam, who has 20 songs, and it's just like,
Yeah.
she wants to keep them secret. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, you finished these projects,
Why?
or even ongoing. Like, at what point does an intrapersonal person look and say, okay, I'm ready to show people? Is it
Right.
like a confidence thing? Is it just...
There's many different
openness?
things. I mean, you're dealing with so many different aspects of a person. You're dealing with their baggage that they're coming with sometimes. Sometimes it's that, and they haven't had a place that's safe. Or you have like this, it's more of a personality that they want part of them to be unknown.
When you look at the
It's-
skills and
it's
the
different.
possible vocations, it's like writers and researchers and philosophers and reflecting and analysing themselves and,
Yep.
and all those things. It does seem like you wouldn't share everything.
Yes.
You always have ongoing things that
Yes.
you're working on.
Yeah. Yep.
It wouldn't all be out there.
No.
So that kind of makes
Yeah.
sense.
Part of it is too that you're actually getting I know this for me is like it is sometimes tapping into deep parts of myself, and I don't want that all to be out there with people I don't know. So, but now I've gotten older, and I've actually realized that part of my story helps other people's story, and so that's changed for me a little bit. But all right, there's one more that I'm going to look at. It's
Nature.
naturalist. So I actually don't have anything in your handout on it. You can look it up online a little bit if you wanted to look more into it. But this is a person that is drawn to classify things in nature and relay learning to see how things work in nature. And they seem to be able to categorize specifically plants and animals and so on. That's why they're called a naturalist. And the type of, it's like, and actually I am very much like this, where I said this to Marty, what kind of tree is that? And he's like, I don't know, wood. And I was like, that is not the, it's so funny. So, but like when you go hiking with me in Montana, I know all the I know most of the flowers, and I can tell you what all the flowers are. And a lot of the plants and trees and so on. When I think I mentioned earlier that my favorite teacher or second favorite teacher in science in 8th grade was a science teacher who taught us all the trees. So, because that was right up my alley. So it's like I identify the patterns, colors. I can tell a plant family because of the way the structure of the branches and the leaves and the so on. It's like I look at it and go, oh, that's that. That's related to this. So I'm sure you could probably do that too. But anyway, it's something that not everybody has, but it's visual and it's, I don't know. What else would you say about it?
I don't know, because I'm not sure from this point of view. I can only kind of think of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of natural wanting to see things grow, being excited by seeing plant life grow.
Mm-hmm. Or animals.
Or animals,
Mhm,
yeah.
taking
Or
care of.
out and seed, there's a real excitement,
Right.
which I find.
Right.
Wow, look at that.
Right.
That's so amazing. And
Right.
it goes up into a little tree.
Right.
It's,
I know.
yeah. It's in the Bible a lot as well.
Yes.
So,
That's true. I
yeah.
didn't think about that. That's a good idea. Trace all those different multiple intelligences in the Bible. That's a great idea.
That is called plants in the Bible.
I love it.
Yeah.
Do you? I have actually looked up plants in the Bible.
They're not very exciting.
No, they're not.
They're kind of,
The cedar of Lebanon. I know, they're massive. I know. They're really pretty.
Mine is however tall and wide they are outside, they're twice that below the ground, their root system.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So if their
Excuse me.
branches go out 20 feet, they go out 40 feet below.
down. Wow.
And they
That's
might be
intense.
like 20 feet deep if they're 10 feet high.
Wow. That's crazy because those trees can be really tall.
Yeah.
They also need a lot of moisture out of the ground, right?
That's probably why.
That's,
Yeah, so they're going far. So that would be obviously forest rangers and, people who work in horticulturalists. Yes, that's a good one. Horticulturalists. And I knew a guy that was going to my church. He studied grizzlies out in one of the wilderness areas. And so, so
All the natural history museums that
natural history.
find new species of moths.
Yeah. There's like how many of them? Like tons.
I want to meet that person from your church so bad.
Oh yeah, he's a really good guy.
Bears.
Do you? Oh, that's,
Love them.
that's
How
cool.
would you really teach that in a class?
Exactly. But you don't have to have a, I mean,
Outside class.
it's basically doing stuff like, if you're teaching the Bible and it comes up and there's like about a tree or about a plant or, hyssop. What's hyssop?
Jesus does it all the time in his
Right.
parables.
Yes. So it's actually bringing those things in and letting them feel and touch them if it's appropriate. But anyway.
The school I staffed last year had an autistic student. Everything was through the lens of farming.
Yes, I can be that way.
He literally put like scripture through the lens of how he kept his bees,
Right.
and it was just like really
Fascinating.
hard because that's how he would pose questions in class.
Right.
And we had we had teachers who are never short for words. Or I don't know how to answer that question, man, because they didn't know where to meet him where he was at.
Right.
So yeah, it was just hard.
Yeah.
To meet that.
I would say it's not the easiest, but it comes up like if you're teaching in a passage that has, points to, parable of the sower, where the seed goes, and you can do all kinds of things like plant some seeds. And actually, I was thinking about this. I don't know why I was thinking about it, so maybe this is why I was thinking about it. But I did the School of Evangelism in Honolulu, and Danny Lehman was the leader of not a school, but of the base. And Danny Lehman, do you know Danny Lehman? He's considered the evangelist of YWAM. So he's in Kona now. So anyway, he taught us on evangelism, and he taught how we were all at different seasons in our life. And he used that parable of the sower, and some people are rocky ground, their hearts are like rocky ground, some people are fertile, some people have weeds coming up. And he used that for us to analyze and ask questions of people when we were in evangelistic situations to figure out where they're at. And then he just said, and sometimes, they're the seed, or they need a seed planted. Or sometimes they're a seed needs to be watered. Or maybe they're a sprout that's come up and then needs to be watered. Or they are a plant and you still need to keep, tending them and maybe pruning something off. And then sometimes they're ripe for harvest and you harvest them. And he kind of had that whole analogy for us. It was great because it really helped me become more aware of the people that I'm talking to, about where are they with the Lord or with the truth, really. And, okay, God, how can I be what they need to step forward in this process of knowing him? So he used that parable, which would be one of this type of intelligence, naturalistic. And of course, I remembered it.
And Jesus talks to them and says, I am the vine, and
Yeah.
puts them in there.
Right. So I did Isaiah. When I did Isaiah, there's a whole bit about the stump and the root coming out of the stump. And so I looked for pictures about, things coming out of stumps, and anyway, and so I used those as visuals. So you can kind of put them together. So there's lots of it within the context of Scripture. Now, teaching this, a little harder. So now you kind of got a grasp of this. It's not too hard. It's kind of fun. It's really good to bring it into your teachings. It will bring more interest, and you will have to slow down your content dump to do it. So then you have to prioritize what you're giving in your teachings. So that's where that would be the adjustment when you're doing your teachings. To bring these in, you actually probably have to prioritize what's the biggest thing so that I can bring in some of these multiple intelligences so that people are more engaged and getting it. So do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like there's a give and take when you're bringing in a lot more multiple intelligences. You're going to get people learning more deeply what you have, but you might not be going into some of the other parts of it that, there's a give and take. I'm just going to say it that way. All right. Well done. I get to hear you next. Woohoo! If you notice in your handouts that there's all these different ideas, this is the handouts that are given to you online. They're just all kinds of ideas about how to incorporate them. So if you're trying to do a teaching, that's for you to get like a quick view. Oh, what's some ideas? How can I bring this in? How can I apply this? But anyway, thank you guys. I love it because everyone is made differently, and your giftings are going to make a difference for someone. Right? And God's going to use them. So even though you might not have what Charlotte has or I have, you have stuff that we don't have, and we need you. And so that's my biggest takeaway is we're all made differently, and we need to be aware that people in our classrooms are made differently, and we want to reach them as much as we can. So that's why we use learning styles and multiple intelligences. All right. Who would like to pray?